In 1908, Jack London published To Build a Fire, a cautionary tale regarding nature's ultimate power over humans. The short story was informed by London's own life experiences as an avid adventurer, especially the year he spent as a gold seeker in the Klondike gold rush of the late 1890s. To Build a Fire tells the story of an unnamed man who travels through the Klondike region, which lies at the heart of Canada's Yukon Territory and reaches temperatures as low as 75 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. Despite warnings from an older man he encountered in his previous travels, the man's only traveling companion is a dog. The man's arrogance and lack of awareness regarding his dangerous environment ultimately lead to his demise when he falls into a spring hidden under ice and is unable to build a fire to save his own life. In To Build a Fire, London utilizes impersonal diction, juxtaposition of the man and dog, and symbolism of the older man to warn of the dangers of humans' detachment from the natural world. London uses impersonal diction to convey a sense of disconnect between the man's cognition and his physical presence in the natural world, and to emphasize that this disconnect is what leaves him vulnerable to the powerful forces of nature. When the man falls into the hidden spring and his exposed body parts begin to freeze, London refers to these body parts as if they no longer belong to him. London goes from writing, "Already all sensation had gone out of his feet," to "Toes and nose and cheeks would be only touched by the frost." Here, London seems to be commenting on the pre-existing separation between the man's mind and body by allowing it to manifest itself physically. The devastatingly frigid temperatures of the Klondike literally overtake the man's body and leave him powerless, showcasing how his physical body exists within the natural world and is therefore subject to its powerful forces. Prior to this lethal accident, London emphasizes how the man was aware that these springs existed, writing, "He knew that the coldest snaps never froze these springs, and he knew likewise their danger. They were traps." The man's knowledge of these so-called traps did not prevent him from falling victim to one. This shows how scientific knowledge accumulated by humans cannot provide them protection from nature's brutal forces, emphasizing nature's ultimate and inevitable power over humans. London also articulates this faulty connection between the man's mind and body by comparing it to electrical wiring. He writes, "The wires were pretty well down between him and his finger ends," referring to the man. Through his implementation of this metaphor, London not only cultivates a further sense of disconnect between the man and his extremities, but suggests that it is a result of industrialization. In the late 19th century, around the time London was writing the first version of To Build a Fire, residential electrical wiring was developed by Thomas Edison and subsequently popularized in the United States. Taking this context into account, it seems that London is commenting on humans' lives becoming more and more distant from nature as technology evolves. By comparing the nerves that allow the man to move his fingers to literal electrical wires, London seems to be suggesting that mankind is becoming overly reliant on technology, even to the point where it is replacing things that are uniquely human and intertwined with human instinct, such as these nerves. Through his juxtaposition of the man and his canine traveling companion, London highlights the dangers of the man's faulty prioritization and arrogance regarding his environment. The man's central goal throughout his journey through the Klondike is to get into camp with the boys at 6 o'clock, as London writes, and this motivates him to keep a steady pace of 4 miles an hour, which also keeps him temporarily warm. However, the man is forced to stop when he falls into the hidden spring and must immediately act to stop himself from freezing. London writes, "So long as he walked 4 miles an hour, he pumped that blood willy-nilly to the surface, but now it ebbed away and sank down into the recesses of his body." Here, London emphasizes how the man's strategy for maintaining warmth did not account for the brutal, unpredictable elements of his environment, highlighting his arrogance and lack of awareness. London goes on to directly compare the man's blood to the dog, writing, "The blood was alive, like the dog, and like the dog, it wanted to hide away and cover itself up from the fearful cold." This underlines how the dog is in tune with its instincts, distinctly differing from the man. The dog recognizes the immediate danger of the extremely cold environment and is ready to act accordingly based on pure instinctual awareness. Meanwhile, the man is so focused on meeting the completely insignificant and arbitrary goal he crafted for himself that he essentially prioritizes achieving it over his own survival. As London refers to the man's blood as alive, he continues to underscore the complete disconnect between the man's mind and body. He suggests that the man's instincts to retreat from the cold and find safety are buried deep within him and currently being overridden by his misguided cognitive practices, mainly his dangerous prioritization. The man's fast pace provided him with a false sense of security, which his arrogance led him to interpret as true safety. This left him completely vulnerable to nature's great forces once he was no longer able to maintain his pace. London uses the old man, namely the old-timer on Sulphur Creek, from the man's previous travels as a symbol for the positive and respectful relationship with nature that humans should have, a relationship that the man unfortunately lacks. The old-timer had warned the man to never travel alone in the Klondike after 50 below, showing how he understood the inherent risks of the environment and the need for the implementation of safety measures such as a traveling companion. The man responds to his memory of the old-timer's statement of caution with arrogance, with London writing, "Well, here he was. He had had the accident. He was alone, and he had saved himself." This was, of course, a premature sentiment as the man was not safe from nature's forces at this point in the story, and he ultimately fails to save himself in the end. The man goes on to call the old-timer womanish and to say that any man who was a man could travel alone, showing that his arrogance is rooted in toxic masculinity. The man sees himself as having been manly enough to defeat nature's powerful forces, showcasing his complete lack of respect for nature and his utter arrogance. He starkly differs from the old-timer on Sulphur Creek, who was wise enough to admit that neither he nor any man could ever overpower nature. With this, London seems to be commenting on the fact that toxic masculinity and unhealthy obsessions with dominance are very dangerous and potentially deadly, especially in situations involving the natural world. London's symbolism of the old-timer on Sulphur Creek effectively highlights the faults of the man's attitude towards nature. The difference between the fates of the two characters emphasizes the potentially grave consequences of being disrespectful towards nature as well. To Build a Fire is a story informed by Jack London's experiences in the Klondike and his perspective as a literary naturalist. London uses this story to caution against human arrogance regarding the environment and to warn of the dangers of humans' detachment from nature in our highly evolved and industrialized lifestyles. Though this story was presumably written in the late 19th century and early 20th century, it seems to be perhaps even more applicable to today's society. As a result of the exponential growth of technology over the past century, and especially within the last few decades, we as humans have become more connected to our devices and less connected to nature, as London hinted at with his reference to electrical wiring. Additionally, today's climate crisis is indicative of the collective lack of respect our society possesses for the planet we inhabit. Since the late 19th century, when London wrote To Build a Fire, the average temperature of Earth's surface has increased by roughly 1.1 degrees Celsius or 33.98 degrees Fahrenheit, and this increase can be mainly attributed to human activity. As the climate crisis continues to accelerate, London's argument in To Build a Fire that humans' detachment from nature has dangerous consequences stands its ground and becomes increasingly relevant.